Maybe you've heard the saying, the more things change, the more things stay the same. Bob Ellis from the American Clarion is here with us today, and just before I forget it, we're going to put Bob's website on the screen. If you are not currently viewing the incredibly good conservative commentary on the American Clarion, you're missing out. So go there and check it out. You'll be glad you did. We're talking about old news being not much different than new news when it comes to government shutdowns and spending and defunding Obamacare. That's not behind us, is it, Bob?
Unfortunately, it's not, especially not in an environment where we have been the last several years, where we're not even getting an annual budget to put it out in front of us. We're just doing these continuing resolutions every so often, and we're also having to pump up the debt ceiling every so often.
Yes, and the debt ceiling, you know, the government shutdown, when was that? It seems like it's been years ago, but really it was just weeks ago.
Yeah.
That when we kicked that can down the road, it wasn't just that we moved the debate 60 or 90 days further down the road. We increased the debt ceiling once again. So people would have us believe that all we did was just move the debate forward. No, we ratcheted up the debt ceiling.
Yeah, and we basically surrendered and caved on not only our principles as Republicans who gave into that, but as fiscally responsible Americans who are trying to hold the line on this outrageous spending. What is it, around 17 trillion now?
Over 17 trillion. You know, I want to pause and say that there are politicians on both sides of the aisle who don't seem to mind raising the debt ceiling. But thank God for those few, those precious few in the Senate, like the Ted Cruz and the Mike Lees and the Rand Pauls, who are willing to stand and say no. And in South Dakota, we should be proud of Kristi Noem.
Absolutely.
Because she took a stand and said, no, I can't support this resolution to move this down the road because it raises the debt ceiling at a time when that is one of the significantly important issues of the day.
Yeah, and she was under a lot of pressure from many different angles. And yet she stood solid. I'm real proud of her.
Yes, thank you, Kristi Noem. The hearts of conservatives in South Dakota were warmed, as were those across the nation, when you made the decision to stand firm on that principle that no more debt is the right choice.
Yeah. I only wish more Republicans would have stood with the Ted Cruzes and Mike Lees to fight the defund Obama issue, as well as the debt ceiling. We had a good strategy. I still believe to this day that it was a winning strategy, if only we had played like we could win. You know, the old saying goes back to when we were kids. You know, what did they tell you? You know, if you think you can, you probably can. You have to think positive. And very many times that carries the day. But we had a number of Republicans, especially within the leadership, that right out of the gate, what were they saying? They weren't saying, well, we can win, we can win. They were saying, we can't win, we're going to lose. And that's essentially what you're going to do. You're going to create a self-fulfilling prophecy if you don't think you can win.
Well, some of us were saying, yes, we can, and others were saying, no, you can't.
Yeah.
McCain was among those who were predicting that was a failed policy. And why did they predict it was a failed policy, Bob? Because they were concerned about their own political skin and that they might, quote, get blamed for something.
That the media might actually say something bad about them. They've never done that before, but Republicans were afraid that it might happen. Yeah.
You know, when I was in the state legislature, we were advancing a pro-life bill at one point, and Republican leadership sent the message, we don't want this pro-life bill this year. We need it next year so it'll bring out the base. And that kind of thinking makes me disgusted with Republican leadership. That's the kind of Republican leadership we have in the United States Senate and in the House of Representatives.
It's a bunch of game players versus people who really want to advance the issues and do what's right.
We need a few people like the founders of this country who were willing to put their own political skin and their own lives on the line to do the right thing for their country and for their God.
Yeah,
And indeed, their God was the God Jehovah, wasn't he?
he was indeed.
And I long for the day when, once again, we'll be able to say that about American politicians.